plenty of people in the world that just want to play music, giving people, when they do their work, a good amount of money, and they can make this the bulk of what they do and concentrate on it.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
All right, folks, you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. We are Alabama's only union talk radio show. My name is Adam Keller, and I am here with Taylor Brown from the AFM Local 80 right here in Huntsville. Taylor, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start with an introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, your background with the union, and how long you've been with the union.
Well, I'm a double bassist based in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I am the principal of the Chattanooga Symphony Opera and a professor at UT Chattanooga. I freelance a little bit as well in the non-classical scene, kind of doing bluegrass and country stuff. And I am the president of AFM Local 80.
Cool. And how long have you been president?
I think I've been president for like 3 or 4 years, but I've been doing rep work at a lot of different levels for about 10 years.
Oh, great. Great. So did you get involved with the union pretty quick once you entered the classical music scene, or was it something that developed over time?
Well, my introduction to the union in the classical scene was I won a part-time job in Canton, Ohio, and the guy sitting next to me was the union steward, and he said, "Hey, you have to join the union." And I said, "Sure." And then through being in different orchestras and kind of developing, I got a little bit more involved in what was going on. And when I got in Chattanooga, they asked me to be a delegate for a player conference. And from there, it started really building my education, and I got myself more involved in the everyday working of the orchestra.
Right. And I love those delegate positions because that's often a good way to get introduced and meet people. And so anyone who's listening, who's, getting involved in their union, whatever industry it may be, keep your eye out for a delegate opportunity. Great opportunity to network. So tell us about AFM Local 80. Who are your members? What do they do? And where do they perform?
So the AFM Local 80 is also known as the Tri-State Musicians Union. We represent musicians in southeastern Tennessee, northwestern Georgia, and northeastern Alabama. So we have a big coverage area. Our members are predominantly members of the Huntsville Symphony, the Chattanooga Symphony, and freelancers in the area that do a little bit of classical work. They do Broadway shows, they play bar gigs, play weddings, basically anything where you can put a musician. That's things that our members do. And from there, not only do we negotiate contracts with these symphonies in our jurisdiction, we also assist freelance players with contract support and negotiating support and training for them, and general education. And we kind of, like any union, serve as a balance to the reality of the market, and that employers can do a lot against one musician, but it's harder for them to do whatever they want against a group of musicians.
Right. Absolutely. The strength in numbers and being able to establish ground rules in writing. I mean, that's a union difference that a lot of folks don't get in their workplace. If they do not have a contract and they don't have folks that can negotiate. So that's fantastic to hear that, we have union musicians at the Huntsville Symphony, at the Chattanooga Symphony, and, folks in our area are predominantly in the Tennessee Valley. So, that's a great thing. And you mentioned it already a little bit with what y'all do at AFM 80, but why is that important, the work that y'all are doing for your members?
Well, first of all, when it comes strictly to the music business, we are establishing the standards of when it comes to pay, and it comes to, the operation of how music works. And then within that, beyond that, we're also preserving this art form through making it a viable career. There's plenty of people in the world that just want to play music and are happy to do it. But what pushes it to its highest levels is creating it as a career and giving people the time to be creative by having, when they do their work, they make a good amount of money. They can make this the bulk of what they do and concentrate on it. And then beyond that, I mean, we are a union in the labor movement. And I was planning on saying this at the end, but I can say it now, is that, the union is the single greatest tool that working people have to create a better life for themselves. There's nothing else better that I found. I've been looking, but it's what we have and it's what works. So, we're doing that from our field, and that affects everybody.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I love to hear you say that, because obviously we share that idea that when working people come together collectively, we have strength that we don't have individually, not in our system. And so it's important for workers in whatever field they're in, as far-flung as coal mines to coal centers to symphony musicians, right? That you are able to protect each other, look out for one another. And something else that I heard you say, which, I think is very important, is that your union is helping to secure the profession, to establish certain standards that are there for the profession. And I think that's very important. A lot of times, unions get a bad reputation for their role in the workplace and things of that nature. But what I have found, and what I think you have found, is that unions are a way to raise the bar and to keep the bar high, and to ensure that folks can make a living doing what they're passionate at, what they're skilled at. We have folks in our community who have these amazing talents to play these instruments that, most of us wouldn't even know where to start. And so it's important that y'all are able to do that in a way that's sustainable. And so that not only can we enjoy it as attendees and as guests, but we can take solace in knowing that y'all can earn a livelihood, performing for us. And that's huge. That's huge.
All the greatest orchestras in the world are unionized and they have a strong collective approach. I mean, an orchestra in general is a collective unit, but all of them, that's what preserves it as a high standard, high elite art form, is actually the union. It's a worker-based thing, not just a, abstract that people believe this music is great. No, it's the people that do the thing have come together and put their necks out to ensure that it is a viable career for the future, and trying to be good stewards of that career. One thing I heard you say, and I like to comment whenever I talk to people about the union, is that, the bad rap that unions have gotten in this country. And I grew up in the South. I grew up in North Carolina, and I think most Southerners have this same experience where we're really brought up to view the union as a problem, or as it protecting people who don't want to work hard. But I've worked in union environments, I've worked in non-union environments, and you can't tell me that both don't have people within the workforce that maybe don't work their hardest. You can't tell me in a non-union environment where you look at people and you can't say that people are, dragging their feet. It happens in every workforce. The difference between a non-union and a union workforce is that everybody in a union workforce gets the same fair treatment. And that's basically it. So yeah, if people are not wanting to work at the level that the collective wants to work at, they can be dealt with in a non-union environment. In a union environment, but they're treated with dignity. They're given a chance to remedy, which is all that people really want. People are going to have good days and bad days. In an orchestra, as a tenure musician, I have the freedom to try to play things in a way that, and take risks. And sometimes those risks are going to lead to a failure on stage. I have the protection and the dignity for that to be recognized as not who I am, but instead I took a risk and now I'm going to remedy it and be better the next day. And that's really what I think is an essential part of kind of debunking that argument that unions protect weak people. We don't. We protect the profession and make sure the profession and the professional is treated with dignity.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You said some really powerful things there. And, a couple of things that come to mind would be, you mentioned the symphony and how it is a collective effort. And I think that's really just cool to think about. To me, it just makes sense that y'all would have a strong union because you are working in collaboration and in cooperation with each other. Like that is what you do. There is no symphony of one, right? So
Right.
I think that is essential piece of it. But I'm reminded of, educators and other professionals who are unionized who need that protection to be able to fully maximize their talents and their intellectual skills. And if you're a teacher, having the security to know that you can go out on a limb and experiment and do new things with
Right.
your students to see what works, right? And what you're speaking to is that basic level of due process that unions fight for.
Right.
We don't fight to defend poor performance because ultimately that's a reflection on ourselves.
Right.
None of us want that in this movement. What we want is the due process. And as you said, to ensure that folks are treated with dignity and respect, and that when there are problems in the workplace, we have some established ground rules on how to solve that as
Right.
opposed to just at someone's whim. And I think that is very important. And as you speak to it, it gives people some comfort in doing their job to the best of their ability, frankly.
Yep. And trying to push their job to be their ability to be better within their job without the consequences, really not consequences, but the whims of a manager who maybe even in their best intention getting pressure from elsewhere to do things.
Right.
We're all people here and people are fallible, but our systems that we create should help support the fallible people, not just a arbitrary idea of what, work is.
Right. Absolutely. And, I think it's important for folks to hear that from different perspectives. It's easy for folks to think that unions are, just for auto workers or just for coal miners, but anyone who is reporting to a boss,
Yep.
anyone who doesn't control their labor, and in particular, when you're working with other folks, there's a need. And so, I really appreciate you saying that. And one thing I also wanted to make sure we address this morning is if someone's listening and they're interested in being a union musician, if they're interested in getting into this career field, do you have any, thoughts to share with them?
The easiest place to join the union is to go to afm.org. That's our national website. And from there, there's a button on there that says join. And inside there, you can find the local that's closest to your geographic area. And if you're in the Huntsville area, you're looking at local 80, and that's us right here. You could also email me at afm80president@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to tell anybody the truth and what I think about what we're doing here. I have a big mouth when it comes to what I do, so I'm happy to share and happy to listen to people that disagree with me. I have no problems with that.
Right. Absolutely. So do you all have anything exciting coming up in terms of performances, especially like in the Huntsville area?
As a member, I'm not a member of the Huntsville Symphony, so I really don't keep track of everything they do.
Sure.
The things that I'm most excited about from the union perspective is that the Huntsville Symphony just ratified a 5-year agreement.
Ooh,
After
that's great news.
Yeah, it is. And after it's nearly a year of negotiation, which is really exciting. It was some challenges in the beginning to do it over Zoom, but in doing that, I think there was a lot of strength built on the committee, members of the orchestra, and a lot more education and vision when it comes to what direction we want to see the orchestra go in from our perspective, the musician's perspective. Management, even the best managements and most well-intentioned ones will not have the interests of the workers at the forefront of their mind. They can't. And
Right.
it's not a indictment of them. It's just more of, that's our job. We keep our interests at the forefront and we push those. And through negotiation and bargaining, we come to a consensus. We come to an agreement of where we are right now and where we want to go in the future. And it's really it's a peaceful and beautiful way to keep everything what we do, whatever type of work going forward, which is what ideally America's supposed to be about, right? We are supposed to be compromising and for the sake of going forward together as a unit.
Right, absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to hear that about the contract, and I think the Zoom bargaining is something that a lot of unions have had to experience in the last couple of years, and it has its pros, it has its cons for sure. But I'm glad y'all were able to work through that. So you've got a 5-year agreement. Was there anything about the agreement that you're particularly excited about or proud of?
I mean, there are raises there in every year. There are raises to travel pay and other accommodations. There's establishments of assistant principals, which is a totally new position inside the orchestra, which pays a couple people a little bit more money for a little more responsibility, which wasn't there before, which in my mind, it really helps cover the orchestra and establishes really a already industry standard that exists. It brings the Huntsville Symphony into that standard, which is really exciting. And, I'll mention it that the contract was voted unanimously by the members of the orchestra. So I'm happy about a lot of stuff, but more importantly, it sounds like that membership is really happy about the work that the committee did.
Right. That is also just a fantastic thing because I know how hard folks work on the negotiations committee. I've been on a bargaining team before, and it's always nerve-wracking when you present it to the membership and you cross your fingers that you did the best you could do, but how that translates is sometimes up in the air, right? On how members will perceive it. And, it's good to get the outside perspectives after being locked in the negotiations. So to hear that your membership has unanimously passed this, that is, that's great news, and that bodes well for the future. And I'm glad to hear that there was engagement in the process. Sometimes those drawn out negotiations can, if nothing else, do that, right? Because people start to ask, well, okay,
Exactly.
well, where are things at? What's the holdup? What's this? And it gets people talking. And, that's, as you said, the beautiful and democratic thing about the negotiations process of getting people engaged in their work and what they want their work to look like. So that's great to hear. And certainly as an IATSE member in the entertainment industry, I particularly have a soft spot for our AFM sisters and brothers and everyone else in the industry, because ultimately, as y'all rise, so do we, and vice versa.
Exactly. And I always appreciate and prefer working environments where IATSE's there. I trust the expertise of them when I'm on stage, not just to make what I'm doing sound good and look good. But also keeping me safe, because I know a lot of the audiences recognize that there is a lot of stuff above our heads.
Yes,
that
there is.
Can fall on us. And I always feel safer when I know IATSE is there.
Right. That, again, there's a union difference because we care about the safety of our members. We care about our brothers and sisters on the job. We approach it with a team spirit. And so, that's one of those key differences in my mind is the safety aspect to it. And I have been amazed to get an inside view of what y'all do, and yet to see y'all crammed into tiny little spots with stuff over your head, stuff surrounding you, wires running all below you. It's amazing the work that y'all do and the performances y'all put on for folks, and y'all bring joy to people. And I think that is just something that, not everyone can say that about their job, and that's really cool. And one last thing that I'll say, that your comments made me think of professional athletes, because professional athletes, that's one group of folks in our society we can look at and say, okay, they are hyper talented. They have a unique skill set that very few people do, and because of that, they command large sums of money in their salaries typically. But every professional athlete league is unionized.
Exactly.
Right.
Their talents attract a lot of money to the industry, and because they're unionized, they have a greater say in how much of that is coming back to them who actually do the thing.
Right.
And I think that's very important. That's one thing I want to mention is I'm just excited to see the newfound interest in the labor movement in so many parts of our lives, and a greater resurgence of understanding of what your work does and the value it produces, and how you can have a say in what your share of that work is, what that money of the benefit, the profit of that work is really exciting to see.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, there's no game without the athletes. There's no performance without the musicians. And there's no performance without the stagehands and everyone else who goes into that production. Just as there's no coffee without the baristas.
Right.
So I think we are seeing that resurgence, and I love to see it. And I love that it's happening, as you said, all over in different industries, from musicians to coal miners to auto workers to baristas. It's a fabulous thing to see working people feel empowered and work together to be empowered together. So, Taylor, was there anything else you wanted to share this morning that I didn't ask you about?
No, I think we hit a lot of great stuff, and I'm really excited, and I really appreciate you asking me to do this. And it's like exciting and cool to see that Huntsville, Alabama has a labor radio station, or Alabama in general has a labor radio station. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're out here. We're trying to spread the gospel of solidarity, and we are always happy to highlight local unions in our area. So for those of you who are interested in music, go check out our brothers and sisters with AFM 80. If you are interested in entering the career, you know where to go now.
I'll add one thing on that. If you guys, union brothers and sisters, don't be afraid to come to orchestra concerts and other, that's your easiest place to see unionized music is the orchestras in your area, particularly Huntsville. It has a sheen of elitism and whatever, but really that's not what it's about. We're working people playing music for working people and for all people. But it would be great to, if you believe in buying union items, come support union musicians by coming to our shows. No matter, and don't be afraid to cross the barriers that are falsely put in place. They're not really there.
I'm so glad you ended on that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I echo those comments 100%. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for speaking with us on the Valley Labor Report. Thank you for the work you're doing on behalf of your members. And we send our love and solidarity to AFM Local 80, and y'all hit us up anytime.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.